Practice mindfulness as you work. Maintain peace, joy, and freedom while you work, and do not be carried away by the job or your non-stop thinking. Organize your time and the task so that you can complete the work in a relaxed manner without hurrying. When you notice your mind starting to worry about what needs to be done after the current task, immediately bring your attention back to the present moment. Do not run or walk in a hurry. Always practice walking meditation, showing your inner stability and freedom, even if you are only taking 2 or 3 steps.
There is a land high on a hill where I am going. There is a voice that calls to me. The air is sweet. The grass is waved. The winds are blowing away up in the farthest field. Oh, walk with me and we will see the mystery revealed. When one day we wend our way up to the farthest field.
I just learned how to sharpen the blade. It makes all the difference. It's like cutting through butter now. When we work, whether it's through our speaking, through our thinking, through our bodily actions, every moment we have a chance to be aware of what's going on and see that that awareness helps us to think, to say, to do things in a way that they have a deeper meaning. Our actions are not always connected to our deep aspiration. Our aspiration to wake up, to bring happiness into our own life and help others to be happy. And so mindfulness of working is a crucial practice and something that we can do wherever we are. In the monastery, we have a session of working meditation, and so the whole community gathers and we stand in a circle, and usually we have a work coordinator, and they look into the tasks we need to do for that day, and we each volunteer. But part of that gathering is, one, to create a collective energy, to see that the work of the individual is not separate from the work of the community. Also to sing some practice songs so that we remember during our time of working to come back to the breath, come back to the body. And also to remind ourselves collectively that the work isn't ever done. And so what is more important is the quality that we bring to the working. Are we really with our breath, or are we getting short of breath? Is our way of working filled with anxiety, for example? Maybe we are just thinking about getting whatever it is we want to do done. So we're not really present with our body, and then we can actually hurt ourselves and hurt others. Either physically or through our speech, through our thinking. So we bring mindfulness to the breath, and then we bring it to our body as it moves, we bring it to our thinking. It's complex. There's a lot going on when we're working. So having a support of a community is very helpful. So we've extended our working meditation from the monastery out into the corporate world, into schools, and teachers have come on retreats, or business people, and then come back and created an environment in which mindfulness is the priority. So not trying to meet some kind of goal or get this piece of work done, but actually bringing the quality of awareness to it, because they notice as a byproduct of mindfulness practice that the quality of the work improves when we're really present in every moment that we're working. And working can be a joy. It can be a kind of play. In the monastery, we say there are 4 aspects of monastic life. So there's practice, study, work, and play. And I find in my own life as a monk that I often bring together those aspects of work and play. So there's an element of creativity, because I know that in this lifetime, the work of collective awakening may not be finished. So if I get caught on kind of metrics or data that is telling me like how good a job I'm doing as a monk, or how good we are doing as a community at Deer Park, or in the International Plum Village community, I think that we really miss the point, because we lose our own joy and our own mindfulness as monastics. So keeping that and not getting focused on the destination or the goal is crucially important. The other aspect I find very helpful in working meditation is to see there's beauty in what is unfinished. So we do our work with mindfulness, with awareness, and sometimes what we produce looks just like a fragment of what we envisioned, the ideal work that we see, the archetype of kind of the finished creative masterpiece that we envision within ourselves. But there can be a kind of masterpiece in the fragment, right? In that little bit that we've been able to do, because there's awareness and there's presence with the act of working. And in that way, Thai teaches us that every act is a kind of artwork. One mindful breath is a work of art. One mindful step is a work of art. How much more so a poem, or a short video that gets posted online. These are all, when we bring mindfulness to it, works of our heart, works that are full of the love of the practice, love of ourselves and of others. So even a fragment is beautiful. Just like when we see a piece of bark on the ground, we might think, well, that's just a piece of the tree. But that is also complete in itself, that piece of bark discarded. We just came back from the redwoods in the north of California, and we learned so many things from the redwoods, and one of them was that the fallen trunk of a redwood tree becomes a source of life for so many other life forms. Other trees grow right on top of the trunk of the fallen redwood, and their roots go down around it. They get nourishment as well from the body of the redwood. All kinds of moss, animals, insects go through the wood. And so we might think that, oh, the redwood is not alive anymore, but it's still alive. It is no less alive than it was when it was standing. And so that attitude we can bring to our working meditation, seeing every thought, every word, every action as an invitation for us to wake up, as an invitation for us to see the beauty that is inherent in the incompleteness. And then you start to see a kind of completion in the fragment. That there is beauty in that this whole universe is made of fragments, and that they are all interconnected, so they are all part of the whole. So in a way, when we do something and it's too complete, it's a bit deceptive. because actually it's not, it makes it seem like it's separate from everything else in the universe, but actually it is just a part of the whole. And within that part, we can see the whole. And that is the beauty of bringing mindfulness to our work. It's not just the product we produce, but also the action of doing it, which is the art form. So you could think of it as a kind of performance art, working meditation. So that's an invitation for us to see that in all of our working, we are engaged in a kind of dance, a kind of performing art, with mindfulness of our thinking, of our speech, of our body. We are dancing through our day with joy. Before I became a monk, I noticed in my work that I often tended to daydream about what I would do when I was finished with my work, which was where life was happening, right? So once I remember I was teaching English in Madrid in my early 20s, and I used to have to ride the metro to go to teach an hour English class in the stock market in Madrid, La Bolsa, or maybe a university or at the airport of Madrid. And so I tended to separate like my personal time, the time when I'm really alive, from the time when I'm working. And so, because I didn't sometimes always find it so interesting to teach English, so I noticed my mind drifting elsewhere. I could kind of teach the English, but my mind was not really there. So this is before I had any kind of practice of mindfulness. And so I'm just kind of watching the seconds and the minutes tick down until the end of the hour when I can go. But now, but when I discovered mindfulness, I discovered that there's so much that I can learn when I'm really present with whoever I'm with when I'm working. When I'm just present with my own body, there's so much I can learn, and that I miss so much, having this kind of separation of mind and body. So that's something that I've trained in, but I also still encounter challenges. It's in Western culture, not only in Western culture, but we've had this ideal from the time of Plato, right? Like there's this beautiful archetype or form that we want to create when we're doing a work, whether it's building something, whether it's cooking, whether it's writing something, a poem. And we see, because we have this feeling, how beautiful that form that we imagine is. And so we try, with our drawing, with our cutting wood or cooking, to realize that ideal, that form. And so when I get caught in that, then I start to feel shortness of my breath, kind of anxiety, like, oh, it's not going to be as good as I want it to be. And if I'm mindful in that moment, then I stop and come back to my breathing and realize it's already complete. Even the half-cooked dish is already complete. And from that point, I can see so many possibilities. Once I let go of that ideal form, that archetype that I'm trying to realize with my work, then I start to be in a profound interbeing with the object of my work. Whether it's the food I'm cooking, whether it's the sentence I'm writing, whether it's a piece of music I'm composing, or whether it's just building a box or a cabin or something here at Deer Park, or clearing a trail. Like I do a lot of trail clearing here at Deer Park, and I use as the basis of that the Buddha's teaching on the Dhamma. The Buddha said that he did not create the Dhamma, but it was an old path that he just cleared away so that we could see it again. And here at Deer Park, there are many old paths, there are old roads. Like right here, there's a path which is an old road, actually. And years ago when I was a novice, I came up here and I could look under the bushes and see that the road was already there. And so people think Brother Phap Luu made that beautiful path in the valley, but all I did was clear away the bushes for the path that was already there. And that is true of all of our work, because the work has already been done since beginningless time. Our ancestors have already created all the conditions that we need in order to be happy and live a happy life. So we don't have to see that we are like creating that happy life, but rather just clearing away the bushes a little bit so we can see the path more clearly and walk on it with solid steps. Tai often said that when we work with a computer for a few hours, we forget entirely that we have a body. So all of our thinking, all of our consciousness goes into what we're seeing on the screen, and then our body can start to slump over. We might notice our breathing become shallow. So with mindfulness, we can, from time to time, come back to our body, come back to our breathing, at least once every 15 minutes. So in the office here, we have a clock, which has the Westminster chimes. And every 15 minutes, we hear the chiming sound and we stop what we're doing. Sometimes usually I fold down my laptop like that, so my eyes are not attracted to the screen. I might look out at the mountain and breathe mindfully so that I can just be aware of my body, and especially aware of the torrent of my thinking. Because when I'm trying to do something, I'm projecting out onto the world, onto the laptop, my desire. And so the stopping with the bell helps me to let go of all that and just come back to what is most important. Because oftentimes it's not important what I'm doing, but I'm training myself to get in this kind of very narrow, directed focus. But with the mindfulness, our focus becomes wider to our whole body. The attention is not based on a goal or trying to accomplish something. So we can just relax and enjoy being in this present moment. And then when the bell is finished, then I might open my laptop, hear a chime, say, "Oh, you've got mail." And then I can continue reading what I'm doing. And oftentimes I find that helps me to reset, to just come back to what I originally intended to do when I sat down. And that's another important thing. Most of us, we just get in the habit of opening our laptop or turning on our computer, and we don't actually know what we're going to do with it. So the tool takes over, and our original intention, it might be an hour that goes by and we still haven't done what we set out to do. So I find it very helpful to not get distracted, to, before I turn on the computer, just reflect, what am I here to use it for? And then use it for that purpose. One thing I observed in our teacher, Tai, when he used a computer, was that he would keep his hands on his lap. And he would just reach up and put his hand on the mouse and then move it, click, and then he put his hands back on his lap. And so I've tried that practice from time to time. I don't do it all the time, but it's based on what I observed with Tai, I saw that there's a lot of awareness in that. So when you want to do something, you put your hand on the mouse or the trackpad, you move, you do it, and then you put your hands back and just read and reflect on what you're reading. And actually that's already usually enough to do concentrated work. You don't have to constantly be on it for most things. And we can learn as well to just breathe. If you have a notice like that comes in when your email comes, use that as an invitation also to breathe, just like the clock chime or a bell. Like, wow, somebody's reaching out to me. May I respond to them with loving words and compassion. And that has really helped me, because email can be very dangerous if we're not careful. If we don't recognize with compassion the person who we may be writing to. We are just sitting there typing away at our computer, but the way the person receives the email is not what we intended. So practicing when we receive an email, before we respond, to breathe, come back to our body is very helpful. See that this is a living human being who receives the email. And we want to use loving speech and deep listening to understand what is being said and what is also not being said. And I didn't always practice that, but I practiced much more diligently the past few years in that way.
one question about the fruits. Many people think that the fruit of work is receiving money.
Yeah.
What are the fruits that you get from your work here in the community?
So I think we need to look deeply and see how we may be owned by others. When we receive money for our work, there's a kind of relationship that we enter into. So the Buddha, he met a farmer one day, and that farmer said, when I plow my fields and I weed them and I plant, I get the fruit of my work through the wheat or the rice or the fruit that I planted.
This is amazing.
What do you, Buddha, receive as the fruit? And the Buddha talked about the precepts, because when I practice the precepts, I get the fruit of joy and happiness in this life and in the future, right now, in the present, and in the future. So when it comes to payment for work, we have to really look and see, is that our deep aspiration? The Buddha, the monks lived out in the forest very simply, and they went into town with their alms bowls, and they just received whatever was offered to them. So they didn't, they practiced not to pay too much attention even to the food that they were receiving. Because then if they did, they might see there are certain houses that have really good food and they always want to go back to those houses. And so some monks started to practice going to every house without skipping a house, so that they got food from the houses that didn't give good food and the other ones as well. And it's all mixed together in their bowl. And that is the kind of practice we try to continue with monastic culture, right? We don't just take all the good fruit, but rather we try to practice non-discrimination. And so if we just work for a company that pays us a lot of money, then we have to look deeply and see, are we becoming more and more narrow? Is the corridor of our life becoming more narrow, or is the path opening wider? So the practice of non-discrimination is for the purpose of opening our path wider. But the more that we get fixed on one person or company or institution paying us money for our work, our corridor may become more and more narrow. So that's something we need to observe in our daily life, to see whether our life is widening in every moment or it's becoming more and more narrow, more and more dependent on just one person or one company. Because in that way we may be owned and we don't even know it. And the path of the Dhamma is not one of ownership, but freedom, true freedom.
The amount of work, sometimes we can say, oh, we have to work 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, otherwise it's not enough. When is work enough?
Yeah, like I said, work isn't ever finished. But if there's mindfulness there, then that working is already complete in every moment. So that's a way of looking at it. So it's not 8 or 10 hours, but are those 8 or 10 hours, is there awareness in those 8 or 10 hours? Usually I find when I do something for very long like that, I'm not very aware. It becomes a kind of drudgery. So practicing to do really high quality work for just 1 hour, I think is much better than doing kind of drudgery for 8 or 10 hours. So taking time to go out and walk in nature, taking time to come back to our breathing, to get up in the morning and do some writing. You might think that's time for yourself, but actually all those things then bring a kind of mindfulness and awareness that is very profound to that 1 hour that we actually do the work, which we've set ourselves to do. So I feel that it's not a matter of time, but it's a matter of attention. So that's an invitation for us to see that in all of our working, we are engaged in a kind of dance, a kind of performing art, with mindfulness of our thinking, of our speech, of our body. We are dancing through our day. with joy.
Everyone breathe hard, so it looked like we worked hard. Oh my god. Monastery life.
Oh my god.
So
exhausted.
oh my god. So tiring. Yay! All aboard! Bye bye, CNN. See you in the Pier Land.
Across the valley, we'll live in beauty there, the fragrant flowers, the day and hours will not be counted, and peaceful songs will fill the air. Oh, walk with me and we will see the mystery revealed. When one day we wend our way up to the farthest field, I know one day I'll leave my